There we go. All right. Let me see if I can change my screen so that the slides make sense. I even have slides and everything. I never have slides. All right. So when I posted this, I said this is in the group the most important workshop you'll ever attend. That might seem a little hyperbolic, but I really believe uh, that it can be because it's one of those foundational force multipliers. And of course, every time we think we're like, boom, we got the foundational, like this is the force multiplier. You dig a little deeper, and there's actually like something more foundational. And that's just how it goes, right? It'll never end. So there is no holy grail of most important training. This is the most important one that I can deliver right now, and it comes off of we just had our event, and then right on the back of our event, we had Laurel Portier's event, and this topic kept coming up, and I realized it could be uh, we needed a thing. We needed a workshop. So here we go. We're going to start with this quote. I changed the slides like 5 times because I hate slides. So I don't even know the order of them anymore. Most prefer the certainty of misery to the misery of uncertainty. Most prefer the certainty of misery to the misery of uncertainty. If you've been around the Guardian Academy and stuff, you've seen this before, you've heard this before. And this is just saying that an average person rather dance with the devil they know, even if they know they hate it, than potentially have a better life because it's uncertain. And this holds us back. Okay. So most prefer the certainty, misery, the misery, uncertainty. Keyword here, one of the keywords is most. Now, I'm not going to go too deep into that because I've talked about it a million times. You just need to realize that the certainty, the need for certainty is often, we get the clues from the people around us, meaning we're uncertain about something, we look around, everybody else is doing it, so now we feel certain about it. The problem is that we do that and we carry this belief where we say, most prefer the certainty, misery, misery, uncertainty. Those silly gooses. Uh, I'm not like most people, and most people think they are not most people. Mathematically, they cannot all be correct. And so it's just really important to realize, in my opinion, that a lot of times we might say, "Oh gosh, people are so silly," uh, and fail to realize that we fall in that category of people that we're kind of pointing at and calling silly. Uh, so we just want to be cognizant of the fact that most people think they're not most people, uh, and most people prefer the certainty measure the measure of uncertainty. So something's got to kind of get worked out here. And that leads to this whole spiel that you're about to listen to, or I hope you're about to listen to it anyway, which is the concept of extraordinary. Most people think they are not most people. And so when we say extraordinary, sometimes people get triggered when I say, let's think, let's become extraordinary. We are extraordinary individuals, a group of extraordinary people. Extraordinary, we say the word a lot, and people get kind of triggered by it. Uh, and what I mean when I say extraordinary is I mean just a little above ordinary. You let me know if you're watching in the Facebook group, put a one in the chat. If you're in the Zoom, put a one in the chat. Uh, let me know if that makes sense. Let me know if you're thinking, yeah, maybe I don't want to be ordinary. And there's no judgment to anybody else, by the way. It's just saying that I look at the average, and I do not want to live at the average. And if you do, no judgment. This probably is not the best presentation to sit on. All right. All right. So I just want to make sure we're on the same page about what we're saying, because this isn't meant to be super hyperbolic or elitist. It's just saying, hey, you could look at, whatever you do. If you're a plumber and you say the average income for a plumber, uh, well, do you want to be a little above that? If yes, then you want to be extraordinary in what you do. Hopefully that makes sense. Now, this presentation is going to start off as becoming extraordinary. It's going to dovetail into something completely different. But the keyword is becoming. So if you want, I got to let people in here. To be above average, above ordinary, the only way, in my opinion, to do that is to become it. Not think about it, not dream about it, not read about it, not fight on internet forums about it, but become it. That's really what we're going to talk about here. And I think Whether this is you want to fix your fitness, you want to make more money, you want to have a better relationship, you want to be a better parent, you want to be whatever it is. I believe that you have to become it for it to have any impact on your life at all. So if you're reading the Guardian Academy, if you're going through, I know we have Laurel's students here, if you're going through Laurel's stuff, it will not help you unless you develop the skill of becoming it. Does that make sense? Let me know in the chat. You can know in theory all about advertising, but if you haven't done it, you haven't become it, then you don't know. You don't know it. You are not it. There's a process. There's a process I think that will help people extract more value out of everything they're doing. Guardian Academy, if you're in the Guardian Academy, different course, if you're in a different course, if you have a different mentor or a different, you totally don't align with my beliefs, but you align with somebody else, you can take the same process and apply it. And that's what we're going to go over today. So when I talk about this concept in particular, it's important to understand that we all stand on the shoulders of giants. All of us. So somebody, I'm here on Zoom, I'm on Facebook. So if this is your first exposure, you're going to give me credit for it. And some of the stuff, maybe I say it a different way. Some of the stuff I say it the same way. But this is true for anybody you follow. It's true for yourself. It's true. You should let all your followers and constituents know that we're standing on the shoulders of giants. And when we talk about extraordinary, I am the most heavily influenced by Dr. Jeff Spencer, who's a guardian. Got this cough. Randy Massengale, who's not technically a guardian, but he's been to our events. And so Dr. Jeff Spencer was the performance and mindset coach for all 9 Tour de France victories. Lance Armstrong was here at my office the other day, and he brought up Jeff. He said Jeff was one of the most important parts of winning. Lance won 7 Tour de France's out of the 9. Bono, when U2 isn't sure they're going to be able to finish a tour and they're at each other's throats and ready to quit and try to kill each other, they call Dr. Jeff. So he knows a thing or two about extraordinary. I lean very heavy on him. We spend a lot of time together. So just know, this is a version of some of the conversations we've had. Randy Massengale was senior advisor to Bill Gates in the 90s, and he teaches a class at Seattle U called Extraordinary Leaders. Akshay Nanavanti, a whole bunch of you met Akshay. Dr. Jeff and Akshay come to all our events if they can make it. Akshay is currently about to attempt this right here, the Great Soul Crossing, the first ever solo coast-to-coast ski crossing of Antarctica. It's one of those paradigm breakers, like the 4-minute mile. It's not supposed to be possible. He's going to try it. Don't know if he's going to succeed, but it is an extraordinary attempt. And we spent a lot of time with Akshay. He comes to our events and he shares. If you've been, let me know in the chat to Facebook or Zoom if you've met Akshay and you've seen him or you've heard him talk. There is a lot to learn from somebody that is doing what he is doing. He's playing on both extremes, and we're gonna deep dive into the things that you can extract from that in a much safer way. You don't have to be like full blown, maybe dying in Antarctica. And John Hurry, who might even be here, I can't see he was just at my office. John Hurry has revolutionized entire industries, and some of you know his background. You spent time with him. We're talking about the automobile industry. We're talking about right now the cannabis and the alcohol industry, done extraordinary things on a massive, massive scale. I'm just giving, again, credit where it's due. These are the people that most heavily influence my thoughts and opinions on these things. And I strongly recommend you go down those rabbit holes and just see if any of them resonate with you. Maybe more so than I do. All right. So becoming extraordinary. And ultimately, I'm going to flip this into, okay, how do you become extraordinary? Because that's such like a esoteric thing. It's really like, what, okay, so how do I become extraordinary? How do I measure that? And the argument that I'm going to make is that you are becoming extraordinary if you are increasing your intelligence. If you are increasing your intelligence. And in order for that to be true, we would have to agree on a working definition of intelligence, because there's so many different opinions on what intelligence is. And so then the question is, what is intelligence? See, it's almost like I wrote my slides. Uh, so when you come to intelligence, you ultimately get this argument, which is the classroom versus reality. Right? Classroom smart versus street smart. A million different ways that people have that argument. And when we look at classroom versus reality, there's a few things. I'm going to give you these resources. Uh, we have to understand that things move. So in reality, things move. In a classroom, they don't. And so you see a lot of people that, if for those of you, which is almost everybody in here, that's really good at what you do, you might read a textbook and be like, yeah, technically that's correct, but in reality, there's like some nuance there. And so things move, and stuff you can only pick up in reality. Individual indexing versus group indexing. So there's, what should an average person eat? What should an average person, my height and weight and gender, eat? And then there's, what should I eat? And those are two very, very different things. Right. So the average of a group is almost never optimal for the individual in a group. Just let me know if that makes sense, because I'm just zooming over this stuff. It's stuff we've all talked about. I've talked about in the past. So if the average American male is 5'9", right, there's a whole bunch of American males that are not 5'9". So anything that applies to 5'9" male does not apply to them, even though it's the average. So you have to be aware of these things. Ensemble probability versus individual probability. That's just that probabilities, people sometimes struggle with probabilities. They can get it right in the classroom. You know, if you could bet $1 and win $1 million and you had an 83% chance of winning that, would you take that bet? Ensemble probability says yes, right? Asymmetry to the upside. Individual probability has to ask, well, is it Russian roulette? Because if I played 6 times in a row, I'm going to die. So no. Okay, so it's just understanding some of these risk profiles, time and randomness, obviously. Black swans. Black swans happen in reality, and they don't happen in the classroom. In fact, they are black swans because nobody in the classroom suspected that this was even possible. So there's always things that cannot be presented in a controlled environment like the classroom that do come on. Every time you hear black swan, that's what it means. And then valid and right versus useful and helpful. In a classroom, generally you are rewarded for making valid points and being right. In reality, generally you are rewarded for being useful or being helpful. If you say the thing that is technically wrong, but it helps the other person, you probably are going to get their business next time. If you say the thing that is technically right, but it doesn't help them at all, you're probably not. So it's just recognizing that there's a difference between the classroom and reality. And in this presentation, in our working definition, we're going to orient towards reality. Right? That's how we become extraordinary, not learn about it. And so some resources, teaching smart people how to learn and things to move. I'll give you these resources later. Just showing the difference and saying we're orienting in this, the definition I am using is going to be oriented towards reality. So what is intelligence if we orient towards reality? Intelligence is developed through engaging the field. Engaging the field. If you are not engaging the field, you cannot get more intelligent, because the working definition that we use for intelligence, I got from Dr. Todd Snyder, who was a student of mine, and this was his graduate presentation in our program. Intelligence is the ability to get what you want. That's the definition that we are using. So if you do not want to be average, developing the ability, and you want to be above average, developing the ability and skill and wherewithal to be above average is making you extraordinary, right? If we accept these definitions. So if it doesn't increase your ability to get what you want, it has not made you more intelligent. I don't care if you can test well in it. I don't care if you know all the answers. I don't care if you can repeat it. I don't care if you sound really smart when you say it. If it has not increased your ability to get what you want, it has not made you more intelligent. So the key is increasing the ability to get what you want, which means learning. Okay? So you have to learn to become more intelligent. the way we define learning is same circumstance, different behavior. So if you continue to behave the same under the same circumstance, you haven't learned anything regardless of what you know about it. Right? If you touch the stove and it's really hot and it burns you, and now you're like, I know the stove is hot. You could tell everybody, I know the stove is hot, but in the same scenario, for whatever reason, you touch the stove again, you haven't actually learned. You could tell everybody about it, but you haven't learned. And so it's the ability to end up in the same circumstance and behave differently, ideally in a way that has a higher efficacy, that gets you closer to what you want. So a few things factor into becoming more intelligent. One is your behavior, and two is repeat exposure to the same circumstance, engaging the field over and over and over again. Hope that makes sense. All right, so here's the reasoning. In order to increase our ability to get what we want, to become more intelligent, we must be able to change our behavior under or in certain circumstances. We must be able to learn. In order to change our behavior in certain circumstances, we must actively engage in those circumstances with the intent of actively modifying our behavior within those circumstances. It seems super obvious, but it's amazing how often we do not do this. You ever read a book or an article or watch a video and go, aha, I got it. Yep, that makes perfect sense. And you walked away. And you never engaged back in the situation which you were trying to solve. And then 6 months later, you end up in the same situation. You behave the same you always did. There's this 6-month lag. You probably forgot how you were supposed to behave. Like, I'm sure we've all been there. So anytime you make sense of things quickly, you risk not learning. When you, aha, got it, without trying it, without actually doing it. Or if you go, oh, perfect, I totally understand this. I just watched all the YouTube videos. What's the step after that? Right? You didn't engage the field with the first thing that you thought you learned. You're not going to be able to pile new learnings on top of it. And I know that's what you do in school, right? You learn all the theories, you just pile them on. So in order to modify our behavior, we must be actively engaging the field. I'm gonna give you some suggestions on how to do that, but let me know if that makes sense. Just drop in the chat that it makes sense, that you understand what I mean when I say engage the field, and what I mean by not making sense of things quickly. I'll wait for the chat here. Cool. So you must engage the field. Rules of engaging the field. These are really important to understand these rules, in my opinion, because the real reality always trumps the classroom. Always. So if a physics professor says that rocket will never fly and Elon builds it and it flies, who is correct? Reality always trumps theory. Okay. Now, that's why we have a scientific method. We have a hypothesis and then we test it and then we have reality and then we go back and we adjust the hypothesis. So rule number one is the only real data is your data. If I say, you probably talk to 100 people and you'll make 12 sales, and you talk to 100 people and you make 31 sales, which one is real? I can't tell you how many people I have seen in a business context that like made $200,000 a year coaching yoga, like teaching yoga. And some business coach said, you can't make $200,000 a year coaching yoga. And they said, oh, okay. And they changed their industry, completely ignoring reality, the fact that they already were. It's just important that we use other people's data. We use group index data. We use aggregate data as like a container. So it tells us if we're like way off. And if we say, look, have 100 conversations and maybe you'll get 15 sales, then at least we know we have to have 100 conversations. It orients us to start engaging the field. But then as data comes in, that data is real, not the theory that oriented us. Hope that makes sense. Yeah. So your evidence trumps anyone else's opinion or theory. Now, of course, you have to like stress test your evidence and you have to repeat it. Like it's got to be repeatable and all that stuff. But your evidence is greater than anybody else's opinion or theory. If I say, Scott, and I just see because I see his face here. If I say, Scott, there's just no way anybody will buy that thing. And the next day somebody buys that thing. Reality wins. I'm wrong. So that's why we must engage the field, even if we trust somebody else's advice. Cool. Trust, verify, engage the field. Like validate the theory or opinion. It's not real until you've done it. You must account for time and randomness. So in a classroom, things are taught in a vacuum. If you do this, this will happen. You could look at probably any class on economy or business development or whatever. And a perfect plan. You can say, this is, I have 5 restaurants and all the data says I should have a 6th. That on paper, economics, numbers, it just makes perfect sense. You open your 6th restaurant and COVID hits. Time and randomness. Right. And the reason that's important is we have to be able to judge the logic, reasoning, and evidence of our decisions, not always the outcome. So we have to account that, okay, this didn't work this time. Should I try it again? Because things sometimes, good decisions sometimes have bad outcomes because randomness, and really stupid ass decisions sometimes have positive outcomes because of randomness. So we must continue to engage. If it works once, do it again and again and again and again. The smaller the steps, the more accurate, precise, and complete the data will be. So there's this fascination with the us quick starts of making these giant leaps. And when you make a giant leap, you are making a massive estimation of the future. So we always want to take the smallest step possible. So if Laurel, I'll use Laurel as an example. For those of you who don't know, she teaches people how to run ads. If she says, step 1, get this video up. Okay. And then step 2, start working on this video. And step 3, start working on this 3rd video. Everything in our human mindset, our monkey mind, is going to try to get all 3 of those videos done before any of them go live. Right? Which means we have significantly less real evidence than if we got the first one live. It was collecting data while we were working on the second one. We would have significantly more data and it'd be real. It wouldn't be an estimate. So we always want to break it up into the smallest step possible. It doesn't slow us down. We're just taking smaller steps. Because every step gives us more data. So the more steps that we take to cover the same amount of ground, the more data we have, the more we can iterate and adjust. And when engaging the field, useful always trumps valid. You can make a whole bunch of valid points that are not useful to anybody. And that doesn't really work in reality. It works in the classroom. So we're always orienting towards useful. What is the most useful thing to do? What is the best use of our time? What is the most useful thing to tell this person? Sometimes being technically incorrect so that the other party can understand it better and modify their behavior in a way to get what they want is more useful to them than being technically correct. You see it on like Twitter feeds and shit all the time. People are arguing over technical stuff that doesn't help anybody. So engaging the field, your data is the real data. Your evidence is better than anybody else's opinion. You must account for time and randomness. You just have to acknowledge that it exists. We don't live in a vacuum. Smaller steps are better. And utility is greater than validity. Hope that makes sense. So how do you increase your intelligence? By engaging the field. And after the stream, we'll go onto the Zoom and we'll start talking through some different examples and workshop with your real-time situation. Okay. The first is you consume or you interact. So read the white paper, watch the video, watch this workshop, read the article, go to the freaking TED Talk, whatever. You consume and you interact. In this case, I'm going to say new stuff, but it doesn't have to be new stuff. We'll talk about that shortly. So that's step 1 is new information is presented to you in some way. Sometimes if you're super intuitive, you don't even have to actively consume it. You just pick stuff up. You've ever been in a room where you're Like your biggest takeaway from the event was something somebody behind you said that you happened to pick up on. So, uh, highly intuitive, highly receptive people, they don't even have to actively consume. They just go about life and they just kind of take it in, and that is their consumption. Okay, but you consume and interact. So if we're being deliberate, we're gonna read the book. Read the book and do the worksheets. Do not try to make sense of things quickly. Remember, most prefer the certainty of misery to the misery of uncertainty. So your brain, if there's anything new in there, your brain's like, "Ooh, this is new. I don't like this. What does this mean?" And you'll quickly try to make sense of it. You'll try to fit it in your existing paradigm. And when you fit something in your existing paradigm, it can no longer help you develop a new one because you smashed it in the one you already have. So, as much as possible, we want to leave the loop open, which means, ooh, I'm a little uncertain about that. Anybody ever feel uncertain about something and then immediately go to Google and try to find out everything you can about it? You're trying to close a loop. And you're trying to close a loop with somebody else's theory. If you can leave that loop open, which means just let it sit. Oh, that's weird. I feel really uncomfortable about that. And then go observe the world just for like a week without making a decision. You will start to see new things and process things, and you will start forming your own opinion or observation about what it means. And your evidence is better than anybody else's theory or opinion. So try to leave that loop open. We have all kinds of resources on open loops. One of the great things to do is consume, interact, and then like just go for a walk. Anytime you catch yourself like, oh God, I got to go down this rabbit hole and research this, just go for a walk. Just let it let your brain wrestle with it before being influenced by a whole bunch of stuff on the internet. And then reflect and observe. So if you go on your walk, or you don't feel the urge, so you don't have to go on your walk, I would write. I would actually, it's our favorite method. I would journal. A lot of people have a aversion to journaling. Uh, we had a cohort where nobody wanted the journal, and finally people started journaling, and they were like texting me, like, "Dude, I'm crying. What the hell is going on?" It's like, yeah, you needed the journal. That's what's going on. Um, so you reflect and you observe. We do that through 6-word updates. So if you ever see, leave your 6-word update, all we're saying is at the end of this workshop, leave your 6-word update, which is quickly try to summarize what you think you learned in 6 words. And you just write it down and you go away. So you reflect and you observe. Don't make any decisions. Just what the hell did I just learn? And free write about it. You don't need to have any solutions to anything right now. Just let your brain have its way with it. Again, don't try to make sense of things quickly. Reflect and observe, not answer a question or come to a conclusion. Just observe. No judgment, no outcome. Just reflect, observe. All right. And then this is the most important one. Go engage the field. Go do the damn thing. So if you read and take the smallest step possible. So if you read a book about communication and you're like, wow, this would really help me in my marriage. I know so much more about communication now. Reflect on it, go for a walk, observe reality, and then walk up to your husband and wife and practice. You ever read a book or a course? This happens all the time in business development, by the way. We're like, whoa, I understand this. I see exactly how it works. I'm going to put $1 in. I'm going to get $3 out. Perfect. And you decided that's what's going to happen. And then you started running ads, and that's not what happened. Right? You did not engage the field. You probably tried to build the whole thing. Right? So consume or observe or absorb, reflect actively. Like if you don't want to journal because you're like too cool for journaling, that's cool. Just sit here and think about it. Stare at the wall and think about it. Close your eyes. Do whatever. Just take some time to reflect, and then go engage immediately. Tiny, tiny step. Cool. I just learned how to engage the field. I think that I know a whole lot more now. Well, when you get off this workshop, go do it. Like just figure out where can I engage the field somewhere. What is something that I think I know how to do and I'm not doing it? And just go take a really tiny step to get a feel for it. The tiniest step you could possibly take. And you're going to realize pretty quickly, ooh, that's not, it's like going on a date where you're like, you played it out in your head a million times and the date never goes the way you played it out. So just start engaging with it. Like, okay, this is not going to play out the way I think it is in my head. Small step, get feedback. Small step, get feedback. And then once you've engaged the field, you come back and you reflect and observe again. A few things happen here. One, you have better data. The first time around, you had a theory. When you read a Guardian Academy article, uh, you're reading a theory, or maybe I'm telling you my experience, or Joseph's telling you his experience. It's somebody else's experience. You are not me. You are not Joseph. So yours will be slightly different. How? I don't know. Only way to find out is to engage the field. So you go, okay, so I understand this. Given what I know about myself, I'm pretty sure this will happen. You form a hypothesis, and then you go engage. And when reality does not meet expectation, because it never does, right? Then you can start, you start learning a little bit about yourself. You start learning a little bit about the process. You start learning a little bit about the nuance, right? Why did this work for Laurel? Because she's great on video and I'm not so good on video. So there's a nuance there. And now I know that. And now I can start adjusting accordingly. Right? So you engage and then you reflect. And when you reflect back on it, you're looking at the gap between your initial reflection and observation. So what did I reflect? What did I believe before I engaged a field? And now I engage a field. What do I believe now? And the gap in that belief will tell you how many assumptions you made in that initial go round, right? Uh, all of those assumptions will compound if you do not follow this process. So you get pretty far off base sometimes where reality doesn't come anywhere close to your expectation. And it's just these assumptions. They pile on, and we're so afraid sometimes to engage the field that we end up in a much worse position. It's like, dude, just go live. Go live. If you're doing videos and you want to get good at Facebook, go live on Facebook. Engage the field. Might be horrible, might be easy. I don't know, but you won't know until you do it. And so this is becoming. This is the step that most people will never take, which starts to separate you from ordinary. Yeah. So most people consume all day long and close the loop. A smaller number of people will take time to reflect and observe. Even smaller number will take time to engage the field. And a very, very tiny number will do all those things and then reflect on what they learned engaging the field and how it's different than what they thought it would be. That is the gap between my expectation and reality. And if you can recognize the gap, you can start chipping away at it. You can start asking why. Why did I think this would happen, but something else happened? Why did this happen for Nick? I did the same thing, didn't happen for me. It happened way better for me. Maybe you're better on camera. Maybe you have a better audience. Maybe I'm an idiot and I did mine on Christmas Eve. Like you can start working through where the faulty data is coming from. Hopefully that makes sense. Do not try to make sense of things quickly. There is no benefit to making sense of something. You need to have enough data to move forward, but there's no benefit of making sense of something other than it alleviates your uncertainty. But as soon as you make sense of something, you're at a much higher risk. That's why black swans are so catastrophic, because we've made sense of the world. And the way we made sense of the world was deciding, since I've never seen a swan that is black, there are no swans that are black. So when one appears, it's catastrophic. So I recommend not trying to make sense of the world most of the time. Just continue to engage, and reflect and refine. And the day that you wake up and your day happens exactly 100% the way you thought it would is the day you can stop. No. Until then, there's still a gap in expectation and reality. So I would keep working it. And remember, the real world evidence is the best data for you. All right. So this kind of what it looks like. Consume, observe, whatever you want to be receptive to, reflect. The best time, the best time, the trigger to reflect for me, and in my opinion, is when something hits you a little bit sideways, when you're like, huh, that doesn't fit my operating system. Huh, that's new. When somebody reputable says something you disagree with, because they're reputable, it's probably worth like leaving that loop open. When you don't do that, you get polarized. Right? All polarization is people deciding quickly, um, not reflecting on stuff. Nope, I'm on this side. I'm on this side because I decided to be on this side, and uh, I'm gonna hang out with people on this side, and I'm gonna throw stones at people on the other side. So anytime there's like judgment, uncertainty, any of these things, I would say, hey, okay, I recommend reflecting. You could you can come out the other end with the same opinion you have now. It's worth reflecting, in my opinion. So we consume, we reflect, we engage the field, and then we reflect again. And these two reflections are different. I'm going to kind of explain that. Now, the concept that, again, it's nuance, right? So the concept that really pulls this together for me is the different man, different river concept, which is it's better to read a good book twice than two different books. Because if the first book did its job and you did your job as a reader, you're a different person. And if you read the same book again, it will hit you entirely differently because you're a different person. So it's, no man steps in the same river twice, for it's not the same river and he's not the same man. Uh, have you ever had that experience? Let me know in the chat one of the books or movies or whatever where you're like, I've already seen this or I've already read this, but whatever, I'll kill some time. And then you're like, holy shit, this is a different thing. Like, this is not the same thing as what I read the first time. It is, but you are different. And that's good. If you read the same thing and it hits you the same way, I have really bad news. You have not grown. Uh, so different man, different river. I want to look at the chat here, see if any Steppenwolf, Shawshank, Meditations by Bumpers. Nice. Rigging the game. Yeah. So if you read it, you're probably consuming it because it's an issue that you want to solve. But I'll come back around to that. So different man, different river. So here's our cycle again. Here's the nuance. And I recommend applying this everywhere, not all at once. You could just pick one little tiny area and start applying it there. Don't try to apply it all at once because nothing will happen. Uh, oh my gosh. There it is. Totally out of order. Told you I messed with my slides. So consume, and for us, we have our academy. So you got the Substack, you got the YouTube videos, you got the podcast, um, posts, all that stuff. It doesn't matter though. It could be the New York Times, it could be somebody else's blog, whatever it is. It could be paid, it could be free. If you've decided it's worth your time, um, you do the consumption, and then you reflect. And generally, we do that in journal, 6-word updates. This is like a book club is a really good thing to utilize if you are into that kind of thing, or a Facebook group where you can say, hey, let's discuss. Like the 6-word updates can create great discussion. It's just an initial discussion with initial reflections. So this is where community can be really powerful. It's not necessary because you have a lot of the answers that you already need. Um, this is where you say, okay, I read it, journal, 6-word update, drop in a Facebook group, leave comments on the Substack, whatever. And there's different, for us, there's different tiers, have different ways of doing this. But what's important is that you get that initial reflection out and then engage. Figure out where you're going to test this thing that's new to you or uncertain or different. Start to become it. Right. So, whatever it is, this is how, this is how here's all the steps to make a bunch of money online making videos. And you go through the whole thing and you say, okay, reflect on it. There's a whole bunch of stuff that probably scares you. Like this initial reflection, you get out the, well, I'm really scared to put myself on video. You just talk through it, but then you got to go do something. It could be the smallest thing, but you have to do something. Otherwise, uh, the rest of the cycle breaks. And I'll show you the power of the cycle. Then on the second reflection, I recommend, if possible, you bring it into the arena. And what I mean by the arena, we're actually starting a program called the arena. So that's what that will mean. But that means if you have a group, if you have a mastermind, if you have a tribe of mentors, if you have anything like that, you bring it back and you say, hey, I did this. I consumed this, I reflected on it, and this is what I actually did. And then you reflect openly with like-minded people that share a kind of a language. You share with them, well, this is what I did. Not only is everybody else learning from your experience, but when you start teaching something, even the tiniest thing, we all know that, right? Like when you start teaching something, you start to understand it a little bit better. You think through it. So you step into the arena, and that's going into your mastermind group or a Guardian call or on a Substack comments or whatever, and saying, hey, I took this thing that was posted 3 days ago. I did this. Here's the results. And that is a huge step. And it's a micro step, but it's a massive like mental barrier. So here we say, and that's the best place. You want to be protective of this area because you'll probably get feedback, and you want to make sure that the feedback is like from people that understand what's going on. Like I don't recommend you walk into, Burger King randomly and start telling them about your ads. You're probably not going to get useful feedback. So you want a curated community here. Ours is called the Arena. I'll share that in a minute. Boom. Here's proof that I did it. Now let's discuss it. And you'll get great advice on, hey, try this, try that. Have you thought about this? Maybe this. But now we have an open dialogue and it's real data. It's not theory. We're not sitting around talking about like some shit that somebody else said somewhere. And this is where, how many people in here like to think that they're such voracious readers, right? I'm such a learner. I got to learn everything. That's why I got to read 6 different books at the same time. Do we have any of those? Oh, never split the difference. It's great. No? Okay. Well, there's a lot of people that like to be distracted and consider productive. What I would recommend is I would go back to the same source. I don't care if you watched it 3 days ago or read it yesterday. Yeah, if you have engaged and you've done the second reflection, go back to the same source, the same article, same Facebook post, same video, consume it again. And if it hits you differently, you've already begun becoming. I would ride that same piece of content or course or book over and over and over until it stopped transforming me. Does that make sense? It's very different than the like read 22 books and make no changes. We're saying, well, hold on, we found something that changes us. And the only reason I consume this is because it's an important change to me. So this doesn't work if you're like picking up random books about how to grow flowers and you don't care about it, So the assumption is that you actually want to learn this. It's going to help you. So I'd go back to the same source and consume it, reflect, engage, reflect. Okay? Go back to the same source again. Does anybody know what this is called? A word that you could use for this. This is the process of mastery. That's all it is. If you've ever had, it's very weird. I have a grandmaster, wax on, wax off. And, little dude's like, well, when do I get to do something different? Like, shut up, wax on, wax off. You wax on, wax off until it's no longer beneficial to you. And you end up being better than everybody else. So that's the trick. It's the restraint to say, wow, I'll use my book selfishly. Bumpers was awesome. I reflected on it. I tried, I set a non-negotiable, and already things are a little bit better. And then I told some of my friends about it. Dan John, I don't know if he's here. Let me see. Uh, he does a bumpers workshop. People come over to his house every Saturday. So that's him stepping into the arena. And I read it again. Like shit. This hit me different. This section of the book means something different to me now, because now that I have a non-negotiable, I'm going to process the whole world differently. And I would just reread it over and over and over and over until some point, um, it's not going to transform you any further right now. Come back to it a year from now, and it probably will. Oh, hopefully that makes sense. If you're trying to learn a marketing strategy, sales strategy, ad strategy, uh, relationship stuff, communication stuff, any of the Garden Academy stuff, this is the process that will help you extract the most out of it. And you can also recognize through this process, I consumed it, I reflected, I engaged, stepped in the arena, I read it again. It's the same thing to me. I already read this. I read this yesterday. It's just exactly like I remember it. The reality is you probably didn't actually do these things. The same thing will not hit you the same way if you have engaged the field. And anybody that's ever played sports or been in business, you know that. You know that you had a pretty damn good idea of how this funnel was going to work until you built it. You know, a pretty good idea how these sales conversations were going to go until you had them. And then once you've had them, you go back to the same content. You're like, oh, yeah, this is different. So you kind of use that to orient yourself there. So regardless of what you're doing, I think this is one of the most powerful things to keep top of mind is if you truly want to get better at whatever it is, then we must not consume and close a loop. We can consume, reflect, hopefully, but then engage the field. If you do not engage the field, you're going to live in internet land where, it's like all the unhealthy, overweight people giving all the fitness advice on the bodybuilding.com. You become one of those, which is totally cool, but you forfeit the right to complain about anything. So you step into the arena, engage the field, get the data. And when I say the data, I mean your data. Yours is going to be different. We've all gone in. I see Laurel's group all the time. We're saying, are there any other chiropractors running ads? What are your stats? Doesn't matter because they're not you. Different chiropractor, different business, different audience. It's not you. Get your own data. Adjust, iterate, improve, repeat. And that's kind of the game. Okay. So resource list for those of you that are interested, you go to knowledge.gardenacademy.io/engage. Kevin or somebody could drop it in the chat for you. That'll just, I name dropped a bunch of resources, learning intelligence, engaging the field. All the resources are there. So you go down those rabbit holes, but don't go down them right now. Leave the loop open. Go for a walk before you go down those rabbit holes. It also applies to, everything I just said applies to this. So bookmark the resources. Don't go down those rabbit holes right now. Just think about the crazy shit that I said and, observe the world with this crazy stuff that you just heard. It's percolating. Right. Nice. All right. So the arena, I'm going to tell you about the arena really quick. What we're doing for Guardians and for the OG founding members, that tier doesn't exist anymore, is we're adding the arena, and it'll probably be once a month to start. And if you're not a Guardian, this is still relevant to you because we're going to keep our normal. We have a private Guardian call every week. That's going to stay private. We're probably going to stop recording it because some shit you just handle. You don't need recordings and streaming and all that stuff. But the actual arena, meaning, hey, I did this, I reflected on it, and I applied it probably once a month. And if you prove, this is very much an implementation thing. If you say, hey, I did this, then you'll have me, you'll have Dr. Jeff Spencer, you'll have other Guardians. You have Ghost. We got Joe Polish is hanging around all the time. Like all in, helping you do whatever you need to do if you prove that you engage the field and you're being reflective. So you come in and say, hey, so I read this book. How should I do XYZ? You're going to say, well, what have you done already? Well, I sat around and thought about it. Nope, go away. Come here. This is the arena. And the reason that's relevant, even if you're not a Guardian, I think if you're a Guardian, you should use it. It's a really rapid way to learn how to start like taking micro steps. And you say, hey, look, I did this. What's really cool is somebody's going to come in and say, hey, I did this. I applied Allegiance Capital to my chiropractor firm. And we're like, whoa, that's really cool. Like, can I publish that? Can we talk about it? Can we promote it? So like cool stuff like that will happen. But everybody else watching is going to go, oh, I never thought of it that way. So the arena will be streamed live. You can watch it even if you're not a member. So you have this rapid over the shoulder look at, oh, this is how you engage the field. And that'll be available to everybody. And then we'll start with Guardians in the arena, and then we'll founding members. We may expand that out to, larger groups. We just got to kind of get in a flow. So hopefully, this acts as a forcing function and gives you a container to come engage the arena. You can consume on your own. You can reflect on your own. You engage the field on your own in your business and your life. But then, boom, the arena will have it here for you, so you can come engage and get feedback and iterate. So excited about that. And again, the arena, gauge the field, it lives right here. Reflect and discuss, repeat. And like I said, stream live over the shoulder. I think there's tremendous value for those that maybe are not in a place to participate in the arena. Maybe you're not ready to engage the field. Maybe you're just not super social. You can still watch as it's happening. And then there is value in being able to see, kind of be a fly on the wall for that. And so we don't have a schedule for that yet. Because we got to coordinate all that. We'll probably start once or twice a month, the arena. So Guardians, I strongly recommend you start thinking about, okay, what is the one thing that if I could figure it out would benefit the most other things, right? Can you find a force multiplier, right? Something that has a multiplicative benefit. And then you can, if you just reach out and say, hey, this is what I want to solve. And you can go to the concierge desk or something. And the team will send you back, here's all the resources. And you can start actively, like there's a process now. It's okay, I want to fix this thing. I want to learn this thing. Cool. Let's do it. Go engage, bring it to the arena. Go engage, bring it to the arena. And again, we stream live over the shoulder. And if you've got a whole bunch of shit you want to talk about that you don't want streamed, that's fine. We have events and Guardian calls. And we kind of start this arena iterative process right now. So guardiandates.com if you want to see the upcoming events, for those of you that don't already know. Otherwise, what I'm going to do is I'm going to end this stream. And if you are here in the Zoom, we're just going to get a little taste of the arena. We're going to get a little bit of try to get in a little bit of a groove and see if we can get people some more oriented towards engaging the field. So the next time we meet, you have data and evidence, and you probably learn some stuff. If you're not in the Zoom, that's all right. We love you anyway. And you are, we have a ton of resources that are totally free. So you go find those and you can work the whole process by yourself. It will be better than working, not the process by yourself. Let me figure out how to stop this stream. Oh my God, where's the button? There we go. All right. The other thing that we're going to do is I'm going to stop this recording.